Good morning, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast, brought to you exclusively by the Lounge Room Network. As always, we're just two dudes talking Colts. We're your hosts, Steven and Zach. And y'all, man, we're so excited today. We're joined by the one, the only Harrison from the Colts Fan UK, the UK Colts Fan podcast. And man, he... God love him. He has joined us. And if I'm not mistaken, we talked a little bit before. It is 2 a.m. over there, and he has decided to jump on here with us. Man, thank you so much for coming on. We don't really hesitate, man. We kind of jump right in. I'm curious, man. What do you think about this, Golden Tate coming out, mentioning a little bit about kind of having us on this list of teams? What are your thoughts, man?
It's a strange one, isn't it? Obviously, there was talk with Julio before he decided to go to the Titans. And I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of Colts fans, is that why stunt our younger wide receivers? We had a pretty deep core last year, but a lot of them was younger. There wasn't really that wide receiver one because of T.Y.'s injury. But now T.Y.'s back and fit. Mike Pittman, Zach Pascal had a great year. As much as I love what Golden Tate can do with the ball, I don't see the need to stunt Mike Pittman's journey or Zach Pascal, or even Paris Campbell for that sake.
Yeah, Zach, what do you think, man? Obviously me and you talk like every day, so I kind of have an idea. But what are your thoughts, man? It kind of surprised me when I saw it. So I got to hear what you have to say, man. I got to hear what you think.
Yeah. Obviously, kind of the same sentiment. It just stunts the growth of our wide receiver core, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think that, first of all, you got to ask yourself a question. Is he better than, anybody 1 through 3, 1 through 4 on our roster right now? And probably at this stage of his career, no. He was a hell of a wide receiver for a very long time in the NFL, a great possession receiver. Maybe a guy that you would want to have your eye on, injuries come up late in the season or something like that. I think that, for what he is in the NFL right now, I just don't think he makes our team any better. I think you stick with Paris Campbell, you stick with Mike Pittman, you go out there with T.Y. That's your 1, 2, and 3. Pascal's strong as a number 4. You've really got 4 good wide receivers, and then you've got 3 capable tight ends. So where's the ball's going to go around? And then what type of money would he want being a veteran? Chris Ballard's not going to give him any type of money, I wouldn't think. He's not going to demand a lot in the market. But that being said, for me, we might be on Golden Tate's list, but I don't think he's on our list. That's just kind of my take. What do you say, Steve?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. When I saw it my first thought was, my first thought was, I can't wait to talk to Zach about this, because we have sat here and gone round and round with the wide receiving core of we know our top 4. Who's 5? Who's 6? We talked to Georgia Brimmer a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that Michael Strawn had kind of shown out and shown a little bit more. We're interested to see him. I know you're really interested, Zach, and Desmond Patman. So, there's a lot of young talent, and then you bring up the tight ends. I think my only hesitation with Golden Tate is there's another team on the list, and I would rather him come here and just, maybe not catch a ton of balls, but not go there and improve them. And that's, the Titans are on his list, and I would prefer them not continue to accumulate weapons, whether good or bad. I agree 100%. I think he's past his prime. I don't think that he adds a lot to it. I know we're not big on, stunting the growth. You have Pittman, who looks like he's getting ready to make that next step. I'm really high on Paris Campbell. We've talked about that a lot. He's been my breakout player. I think he's going to have, I got Harrison. I don't know if you've listened. I have him at 1,000 yards. I think he's going to have 1,000-yard season this year if he stays healthy, as long as he doesn't get hurt. So, I'm okay. I'm not, and I don't see, I think you said it best, Zach. We may be on his list. I don't think he's on ballots. I just don't. I don't foresee it. I think we're way more likely, like we talked about last week, to make a play for like a corner, somewhere along those lines later as we get closer to actual training camp, to preseason. So, I mean, it's a hot topic. You know, it's the newest thing that we've heard. It's kind of the only news. I was listening to Kevin Bowen today, and he even talked about, he said exactly what me and you say, Zach. It's like, this is the dead period, man. Like, you're searching for news a little bit. You're like wading through the high grass trying to find something. And lo and behold, Golden Tate drops this nugget going, I want to go to the Colts. Well, so does everybody else sometimes, but we don't always get what we want. So I had to cover that.
I'm interested in just Harrison's take. Does he think that Ballard will go out and sign another veteran, like cornerback, just a veteran in general? You know, I know we talked about Golden Tate, but I'm interested in his take and his viewpoint from, you know, does he think that Ballard goes out and maybe a Richard Sherman? I'm just throwing names out there, you know, Steven Nelson, you know, something like that to kind of shore up that secondary and have a little bit more of a, you know, a veteran leadership voice in there. Just interested to get his thoughts on that.
Plain and simple, no. I'll explain why I think no. You know, not too long ago, Colts fans will do well to remember that we were not a place where people wanted to play football. You know, as much as I love Chuck Pagano as a person, he's not a head coach, and I'm not even going to talk about the GM. We all know the story. And, you know, people just did not want to be there. It was a toxic place to be. It was quite horrible. And now all of a sudden, you know, the Colts start building. Chris Ballard does what Chris Ballard does best and builds a franchise back up from scratch, really. So I think now that the Colts are a team, you know, we're sort of Tampa Bay a year ago. People want to come to the Colts. There's a buzz about the Colts this year. And I think what Chris Ballard has sort of said to his guys is, people are going to want to jump on the bandwagon or ring chase. You know, we are sort of tossed in, okay, maybe not tossed in as Super Bowl winners, but we are tossed into the veterans that, you know, agents are going to be ringing Chris Ballard every day saying, I've got a guy. And it's sort of like what we did with, you know, we was a couple of years ago, give me Golden Tate any day. Like we did with Justin Houston. A couple of years ago, we picked him up. He's been a great fit for the locker room. And, you know, Zach, you mentioned a couple of other free agents, senior guys in the league. Again, a couple of years ago, when we really needed these guys to be like, I could go and lead this team. You know, it's sort of like, where were you when we needed you? Now you need us, sort of thing. It's quite nice to have that predicament for Chris Ballard, but I just think we're good with the team we've got at the minute. I'm really, really excited about this team.
I'm interested to see. It's tough too because like a Richard Sherman, some of the names that we toss out. I think me and you talk, Zach. The Richard Sherman fits possible need. But does he fit the locker room and like what Ballard wants? It's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little higher on Rock Ya-Sin. That jersey's waiting for you, man. I got a lot of feedback about the fact that I'm going to send you that jersey if he balls out this year. But it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, so Harrison, we're going to kind of go because I'm just curious, man. I mean, I've been on your show before. We've talked and you got to kind of rapid fire some questions at me. And so I'm super curious, man. How did you become, growing up? Growing up, not here, over in England, obviously. How did you become a Colts fan? Like what drew you to the Colts?
It was honestly just a bit of pot luck. So I think I downloaded Madden 07, watching the demo, like that's a funny version of rugby. Didn't really get what I was doing. I probably didn't even know what a quarterback was at the time, guys. And the two teams on the free demo was Packers or the Colts. And something drew me to the Colts, I don't know. I think it might have been the blue. I quite like the colour blue. So I picked the Colts. And then it was actually, obviously it was a Super Bowl winning team. And Peyton Manning, yeah, great and all that. But it was actually Joseph Adai that suckered me into the Colts. Me going through the next 2 years, not even knowing who, only having the demo of this game, not even the full game. So I'm literally just playing the Packers like against the computer in exhibition mode, thinking Joseph Adai still played for the Colts in 2009. You know, and I think I actually have family friends in America who sent me over a Colts cap. And that is when I actually started to look into the Colts and who they were. And the first player I'd say I actually followed was Malik Hooker. He was like the first sort of college player I followed. And it just grows. And yeah, so thanks. I think it was back on Xbox 360 or something like that. The free demo. So
That's crazy.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I've heard the story because we talked about it when I came on. But I was like, I want our listeners to hear just like, because we talked about it last week too, like just the random things that cause you to become a fan of a team. And I thought that was such a great story on how you got to where you became a fan of the Colts. And like your favorite player was not Peyton Manning. I think me and Zach have talked about that. Like our favorite players are very different on who you grew up watching and who you kind of selected on who you wanted to follow. I mean, like it's well known, like my favorite player of all time isn't Peyton Manning. It's Bob Sanders. I think we talked about that one time on your show that, you know, he completely transformed the defense in my mind. So completely separate, Zach or Harrison, whichever one knows this answer, because you brought him up too. And it just kind of popped in my head. I was like, I don't know the answer. Has Malik Hooker signed with somebody? Did I completely miss that?
I think he's still
a free agent?
Limbo, as what I know.
Is he still? Last I heard, he was going to like Dallas for a visit. I don't know.
I think he's actually visited 3 teams. I think he went to Dallas, Miami, and the Steelers, from what I've heard. I don't think he's inked an actual deal though.
That's crazy.
I may be wrong, but good for him, man. I mean, I wish the best for him. That's a guy that just never can. You know, he's always been snake bit. He never can be healthy on that field. You know, he always has that ball hawk. You know, we've all seen it. You know, he had that one-handed interception. Was such a nice grab. But I think he would do best with a fresh start. And I think he would do best in a system where he can play that true center fielder role a little bit better. I think Ballard tends to like players who are a little more physical, that can kind of run down the box and do some different things, especially values tackling as a safety. You can just tell, you know, in the last several years, getting Kari Willis, Sean Davis, you know, Blackman, all these guys that he's bringing in, you got to tackle. And he mentions at every single press conference after drafts, hey, these guys can hit. These guys can play downfield. Let's just hope that Malik has a healthy career and can go somewhere and really show out. Because I always thought he got a bit of a bad rap. You know, I think it was never really about his ability on the field. I thought it was always a lot to do with he just couldn't stay on the field. You know, he just hard time. And you remember they drafted him in the Chuck Pagano era, really. So he was kind of thrust into one style defense. And then the next year he goes to that traditional 4-3 zone defense and didn't play him any favors, you know, in my opinion. But yeah. We'll see what happens with Malik Hooker, man.
I mean, I was all about Malik. I loved how he played, and I think you have a great point. You know, Pagano, but it's also an even more important one. A little bit is, let's not forget that also was the draft before Ballard had his scouts in place. Those were Gregson's scouts that he was going off of when he picked him. So, like when we look at Ballard's drafts. And you look at that first one, people are like, oh, he had so many duds. He didn't have any of his guys in place yet. You know, he had none of his people who he trusted. And then you look through the draft since then, and it's just been lights out, you know? So, I mean, Harrison, so I got another one for you, man. And I ask everybody, I think we've asked everybody from Kevin Bowen to George Bremer to anybody who we have to Vinny last week so what are your thoughts on Carson Wentz, man? What do you think? What do you think about how he's looked, about just the overall trade and kind of thoughts about what he might do this year?
I will be completely honest. Before he came to Indianapolis, I didn't want him, mainly because I thought he sucked. And that again comes with being over in the UK. You know, you tend to watch your team and no other football. And it's sort of grown with my podcasting that I've started to watch other teams more and more. And I actually looked into why Carson Wentz sucked. And, you know, it was more to do with toxicity in the changing room, getting benched and then not benched. And then, you know, I could go on a million reasons why it didn't work out at Philadelphia for Carson. But as soon as he touched down in Indy, you know, he was my quarterback, and now I'm going to back him to the hills. You know, you die on your stick for your team. Yeah, I just love the feel-good factor, and he seems to be smiling, and that's the most important thing, I think, especially in today's world with everything that's gone on over the past year. To see actually someone just happy to be somewhere where he feels like he belongs. I think it's, you know, sort of what Zach was saying with Malik Hooker. We just want to see a fresh start is sometimes what people need. And I'm just hyped for Carson Wentz to have a good have the best oil line in front of him, have a great wide receiver core, and have a great running back room to. It's sort of a catch-22 because he's got a lot of pressure of all the right pieces now. So he has to go out and make it. But like we say, fresh start. And I'm just pumped for him because I think we don't need him to be MVP Carson Wentz, just like we didn't need Phillip Rivers to be MVP Phillip Rivers. And seeing what Frank Reich could do with a one-legged Phillip Rivers makes me excited for, you know, Carson Wentz, who is, I'd say, an upgrade in that position.
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest with you. I love the honesty. You know, I mean, the fact, you know, I didn't want him. I thought he sucked. Like, I love that honesty because once we trade for him, I mean, yeah, you're right. He's our quarterback. You're ready to go. I mean, I've been a huge fan. I've been really excited about it, especially since the trade. I thought on the market wise, he was probably the best option for us that fit what we were going to do. But man, I mean, all I know too is that I love seeing his mentality now too. Like how he looks so happy, you know, from the Pat McAfee interview when he first got there, which we talked about him here. He didn't have to do. He totally didn't have to do that. And he went right in kind of to the Lions Den, to the loudest voice in Colts Nation, and sat down with a guy who didn't want him in Indy and talked to him. But then you see like the stuff like the pictures of him on his Bobcat or him, you know, playing knockout at training camp, or him staying an extra week with the rookies. Like, I know I'm really excited. and normally I toss it to Zach for him to talk, but I know Zach has sat here before and said, I'm tired of talking about it. I just want to see him play.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do. I think it's time to play. Now I'm kind of in between you, Steven, and Harrison. So Harrison thought, hey, he sucked. You really wanted him. And I wanted us to draft a rookie quarterback, to be honest with you. That was my thoughts before any of this transpired. But just like you and Harrison both said, the moment that he became a Colt, he was a Colt. And we were there. You know, I mean, I 100%, I'm invested in him. I'm rooting for him. He's my quarterback. I think he has a chance to really thrive in this offense. And if not with this team, you know, this is it for him. You know, and I think he knows it. He's a smart guy. I don't think there's any doubt in his mind that he's in the best possible position. And a point that Harrison really pointed out was great. He's not going to be asked to be special. He's just going to ask to make the right play. You know, whether that means, hey, I know it's not flashy, but if it's 3rd and 1, just check down and hand the ball off, man. If they're showing, you know, a pass coverage, just check down and run the ball, get the easy first down, keep it going, keep the chains moving, protect the football. and more importantly than anything, protect himself. Be healthy. Don't be reckless. Don't be that version of, that we fell in love with Andrew Luck, the way he played, almost that reckless style of football. But at the end of the day, it ended his career playing that style of football. So there's got to be a fine line, if it's, 4th down with 30 seconds left in the Super Bowl, you run somebody over to win the Super Bowl. If it's 4th down, second week in the NFL, you maybe slide, you maybe throw the ball away. You make just the right pass, and you don't have to do anything extra special. You got to protect yourself, because, the biggest thing that we need with Carson this year is we need him to be healthy. We need him to be on the field. He's our starter, and we don't have a real good, viable, if we're going to have to go off the bench, I mean, we're talking about, either Ellinger or Eason. I don't think we're going to bring in a veteran guy on the bench this year. I think they're going to let those two guys kind of play behind Carson. They don't want any distraction. They saw how that kind of mentally messed with Carson last year, having Hurts brought in, and I don't think they want any distraction. I think they want it very clear. This is your football team. Now go out there and prove it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I was sitting here nodding along, and I was like, man, I feel like, Zach, why don't you tell Harrison what your hot take is for the quarterback room?
Oh, yeah, Harrison. So my hot take, I don't know if anybody has heard this or anything. I think Ellinger beats out Eason for the backup quarterback position. I know it sounds crazy. He's a workhorse, and in my opinion, he's everything that Eason is not. Eason's this big, strong arm, gifted quarterback. It kind of comes easy to him naturally just to kind of fling that ball out there. And Ellinger's just this guy who just has to work, man. But in a mobile, it's a mobile game now. You got to have a quarterback that can move a little bit. I think that Frank Reich is really intrigued by that element. And I'm just saying, I think there's a really good shot that he comes out there and he steals that job from Eason.
Harrison, what do you think, man? Not to put you on the spot with that one, I'm curious.
No. I think we was all curious with the Sam Erlinger pick in the draft, to be honest. So he picked him for a reason, right? I mean, I'm a Jacob Eason advocate, especially when he came out. He said, I want to lead this team. Sort of, I think he knew in himself he wasn't going to be the starting QB, especially having to redshirt for a year, not even getting a preseason. But it showed that he wants to be there. I don't know what Sam Erlinger can do, so I won't really say if I think he can beat him out. But I don't know. It's a weird one, because they both could be the starter by the end of Carson Wentz's tenure at the Colts, or they could both be traded at the end of next year. It's a strange one. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. It really will, just to kind of he seems, we've talked about it before too, where it's like he seems to have all the characteristics. And when you hear Ballard talk about Ellinger, as opposed to how he talked about Eason last year, it's so different. Like he almost talks about Ellinger like he's going to be the starter. It's kind of insane. So, I mean, so I've got another question for you, Harrison, because it's so, I'm so interested. Outside of when, well, it's two questions actually. Let's kind of piggyback. One, do you get to watch a lot of Colts games? And if you do, how do you go about watching them?
So in my old job, I was in the Royal Navy, and I literally had no time to watch Colts games. Maybe I'd catch a game if I was coming off my morning watch at 4 a.m. I'd catch like the post-conference. Then when I left the forces, obviously massive lifestyle change.
Right.
I was like, oh, I actually have time to watch games now. And, yeah, not having to be up at 3 a.m. and, going to bed at 12 p.m. really does help. And I just tend to use Game Pass. I know it is pricey, but it's so much easier than having having to flick through, we have Sky and BT Sports over here, sort of your Fox and ESPN Sports, I'd imagine. It's just easier to have Game Pass, to be honest. So I just pay for that.
So my piggyback question is, the Colts were recently over there. Did you get a chance? Did you get to go to the game? Did you get to tailgate it? Are you close enough to, I think they played at Wembley. So are you close enough to be able to go do that?
Unfortunately, no, because typical, I was out on deployment when they was playing there. Just typical, like my luck. But I would be close enough to go and watch. I mean, obviously, England and the United Kingdom is a lot smaller than America, but I think it'd be probably about a 3-hour drive for me to go and watch at Wembley, maybe a 3.5 hour, depending on traffic. So I will be getting
shorter than me.
Yeah,
that's shorter than me going to Indy. That's not bad, man. Well, so we're gonna kind of round out a little bit here, but I see you. For those who are on YouTube, we always talk about too. Please rate, review, subscribe, share. Go over to YouTube, subscribe over there. And if you're on YouTube right now, I noticed as you leaned back, I'm gonna give a free plug to Lawrence because I totally spotted his hoodie. So when we get done with this, shoot me. You have my DM. Shoot me a DM. Get us your size, and we're going to ship you. We'll ship you over a shirt, a No Horsing shirt, so you can rock it next time you're on Lawrence's show.
Yes, I will do. I appreciate it.
That's no problem, man. No problem. Well, so obviously here at the end too, we want, as we're kind of rounding out, I want to give you time. Where can the people listen, watch? How do they follow you? It's a great show. You guys need to make sure you do check it out.
Yeah. Obviously, you can find us on Twitter, UK Colts fans. On there, I think we have a link tree, so we have everything in him. But just to run through, the YouTube is UK Colts fans. We pretty much do what you guys do. Podcast, talk to people, get guests on like yourself, Stephen. We had Cody on a while back and Lawrence, and also with me on the show is my co-host Xavier, who I say is the brains of the show because he's actually clever at football. I'm an armchair GM, I like to say. So yeah, we just pretty much talk Colts football. We do talk about the NFL, but it does always end up being the Colts again.
Awesome. Well, I mean, thank you so much. I know it's super early. Y'all heard me say it earlier. It's 2:00 in the morning. Obviously, now hearing that you were in the Royal Navy and you were getting up at 3 a.m., that's probably why you're okay right now. But thank you so much, man. We appreciate you jumping on. Make sure you guys go check out his stuff. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks, Harrison, man.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah.
So, amazing interview with Harrison. Make sure you guys, please make sure that you go check out his YouTube channel, his podcast. I've been on it. Like you said, Cody's been on it. We've had numerous people who we know, who we work with, who we kind of hang out with, who have been on the show too. So please make sure you guys go over and check it out. So as always, we kind of segue here into our social media sessions powered by One Call Technology. This is kind of where we get to answer some questions from you guys. And I did something a little different today, Zach. If you guys are watching on YouTube, we have our queue of questions. We always do. We put out that we were having Harrison on. And I was like, while he's talking for just a second, I'm gonna get over here on my little Twitter device here real quick, and I'm gonna pump out that we're recording right now. Right now, do your question, and I will ask it first. So guess what? I'm gonna ask it first because we actually have someone. I've never gotten a question from this person. So let's see. It is at OGTY Okay, I'd say the username, but it's like emojis and TY money sign, all these things. So with Mac coming back, would you like to see Mac or Hines as running back 2? If Mac, how many snaps would you like to see Hines still get? Zach, I'm going to give it to you first, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, by the way, right? I mean, you just wonder. I think my only concern is with Jonathan Taylor he's such a, workhorse type of a running back, right? He's always that guy that as the game goes along, he just wears other teams down. And that's where you see him break big runs and really kind of exploit and use his God-given ability. But to answer your question, is he running back 2? He's running back 2, but not option 2. I know that seems kind of a weird thing, but he's the second best running back on this team. So if we're talking about, hey, who do we want to hand the ball off to? We want to hand the ball off to Taylor. We want to hand the ball off to Mack. But our second best options, in my opinion, is Himes. I think he still gives you a little bit of an element where he can run the football, and every once in a while you'll see him slide through there and bust one. But he really makes it hard on defenses. I listened to a guy, and for years I followed Rick Venturi. I think he's just such a great football mind in the Colts world. And one thing he says, you want offensive players to just cause stress to the defense, right? What players cause the most stress? And he's one of those types of players, whether you want to or not, you really can never just not know where he's at on the field, because one bad mishap, one bad play, and we've seen it. This guy with a spin move or a leap over the top or a jackknife, all of these different plays. He's really found his way in the NFL, Steven, to really be a relevant football player. And in my opinion, if the money's right, he's warranted a second contract. Somewhere, even if it's not with the Colts, he's warranted a second contract because he's proven to be more than just a gadget guy. He's not a great running back. I'm not going to try to pretend like he's this elite running back, but he's serviceable. You have to know that he's willing to run the football. It's not gimmicky. He will try to run a guy over if he needs to. He's a pretty strong guy. And not on top of that, he's just a freak, man. When he catches that ball in the open field, he can really do some nice things. And Frank Wright just loves him, man. He loves his demeanor, the way he approaches football, and his ability. So a little bit long-winded there, but I think I covered all the bases there, Stephen.
No, you did. You covered everything. In my opinion, I've kind of taken the standpoint with Mack that I feel like he's going to fill more of the Jordan Wilkins role, because I don't think Jordan Wilkins makes the team. I know he's in our stable right now. He's talked about. I don't think he makes the team. But I love the point you made about him being the number 2, but maybe not option 2. He fits so well with what you talked about previously on what running backs are nowadays, what they need to be nowadays, which is multifaceted. They have to be able to catch the ball. And I'm obviously biased. I'm head to toe in blue, but he's one of the best receiving running backs, I think, in the NFL, because the way he catches it and what he knows to do after he gets the ball is amazing. And you're right. You put him in there. I screamed. I remember watching the games last year, and I was just, once JT really hit his stride, it was like, man, can we get a Wildcat with Hines and JT in the backfield? Like, it's just scary to think about. And I think now you have an off season. You know what Taylor can do. I'm not shocked if we see that. Like, you could literally see Hines take the snap with Taylor and Mack behind him. How scary a thought is that? For defenses. So, I'm with you 100%. I think he's number 2. I do think he gets signed back here. I think they're talking to him. I think they're probably having some little discussions here and there on how much do you want. Obviously we know the big news, which is we know that they're talking to Darius Leonard. We know that they're talking to Braden Smith. And we know they're probably talking a touch to Quentin, even though they've got him locked up. They're probably talking to him too. So I think he resigns here, because I don't think Mack comes back after this year. I don't. I think Mack is probably gone, as much as they love him, because the backfield's just going to get too full. But, it was a great question. Hey, shout out to you guys too, man. I asked for it while we were recording, and someone jumped on it. It's like, hey, I'll take it, man. So next up, we have Bradley Woods. Will Mo get more snaps and targets this season? He's built for Wentz. So obviously he's talking about Mo Alley Cox. What do you think, man?
No.
It's such a short answer. So, no.
I think it's about the same, honestly. I think he really showed his ability to block, especially those crackback blocks. That being said, I think Granson is really going to be your natural receiving tight end. He's going to take up some of those other snaps. I think Jack Doyle gets back in the mix a little bit. I know that you mentioned that, you're not sure he could be a cap casualty. I think Jack gets back in the mix a little bit, honestly. We'll have to see. We don't know how all offseason long, all we've talked about is Zach Ertz, possibly. You don't know if that's going to play out when it's all said and done. That being said, I think that he's probably still your third tight end on this football team. I don't think it takes long for Granson to kind of navigate and get out there. And he's the new age tight end, right? I mean, everybody likes that hybrid tight end, that guy who can catch the football. And once he catches it, he can actually do something with it. It's not just a guy who catches it and falls straight down. He's kind of everything that we wanted from Trey Burton. I think, a good athlete, you can move him around, play him in different positions. I know even Frank Reich mentioned putting him in the H-back position. Let's hope to God he can catch the football better than Trey Burton did down the stretch, as the season went on. Doesn't drop the football. I know he had a little bit of a kind of a misnomer, in my opinion. They said he dropped some footballs, but I think he really just had a game or two that was bad. I think all in all, his total career, he was actually pretty sure-handed as a tight end in college. So we'll see. So I say no. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. So if you had asked me before the draft, I would have said yes. I would have said yes. But now with Granson and kind of, hearing our buddy George Bremer talk a little bit, and they really, really like him, and everyone kind of feels like he's going to be that player who makes this big jump, and he's going to immediately contribute. And it's like we said with everything else, there's only so many balls to go around, man. There's only so many times you can throw the ball, and we're a running team anyway, too. I could see him being the same as last year, maybe a few more. He showed some reliability. He's like an ox when he gets the ball running, he's just out there. He reminds me, I know it's not the same, and it's not the same position. It's probably not the same size. The way he runs reminds me so much of Brandon Jacobs back in the day, just very upright and just big. And I mean, I don't know about you. I don't want to tackle him if he's coming across the middle, but, and then like you said too, I mean, I know as tired as you are of talking about Carson Wentz, I get tired of talking about Zach Ertz because he's not on the Colts, but it's there. And if they bring him in, someone's leaving at that point. I think someone has to be leaving, because you're not going to carry 4 tight ends. Someone's leaving. I don't know who that would be. It could be Mo, but I mean, at the same time, in my mind, I sit here and I go, man, they've invested so much time, so much energy into him. He never had played a snap of football till he got to the Colts. I mean, and he's looked good. He's looked better each year. But in the end, when it comes to does he improve his stats from last year? Does he get more targets? I'm on the same page with you. And it's a great point that he makes in the question. We do know that Carson likes big-bodied receivers. He likes to throw to big bodies. And Mo's about as big as we have. he's a D lineman running around masquerading as a tight end. So, I mean, he could hit him, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to – I just think he's a casualty of there's just not enough. There's not enough balls. You're not going to ask Carson to throw 50 times a game anyway. So he's just not going to get the ball enough to kind of shoot up his stat line. So great question. I love the questions. I always love these questions. So next up is Deshaun Wells. And he asked, can the corners help the guys up front this year? What do we think of the corners, basically?
I mean, obviously you've got with Kenny Moore and Rhodes, I think you're really, really solid. The Colts are just kind of in the same position this year as they were last year, right? They're looking for that second corner, or, I hate to say second corner, because really Kenny Moore is our best cornerback on our football team. I don't want to any mistake about it. Now, and Rhodes was very, very good, especially those first 9 or 10 weeks of the season last year. But we're searching for that next guy. It's almost, in my opinion, Stephen, almost an open competition. You're going to see a lot of training camp buzz around that position. You're going to see a lot of people fighting for that position because I truly believe it's open. I truly believe that Eberflus has basically told all of them, you can go out and win this job. Like, it's not somebody's job. And I think TJ Carey would be the front runner right now. I think he just fits our system. He plays the way that Eberflus, he gets it. He's a veteran. I think he makes fewer mistakes. Carey's a little bit limited. So his ability to ascend, you don't have that potential to rise, get something solid out of Carey. Some other guys, though, Marvell Tell, players like that, those are the guys that could be the wave of the future. You got Rock. I'm not going to discredit that Rock's going to be in the mix, man. I mean, he's going to have a chance to prove himself this year. And there's never been a question with Rock, his work ethic. I mean, the guy goes out there and he does practice hard. He plays hard. He takes care of his body. He trains. It's just about his pure ability on the field, I think, is really where it's all at. Can he bring it all together? Can all of it start to kind of click, and that's the big deal. But yeah, that cornerback 2 position is really big. But to answer your question, can they help them? Can they help the D-line? I think it's probably quite the opposite. I think the D-line helps them, actually. I think the D-line, the more pressure you put on that quarterback, the less time you're asking for those corners to have to actually cover. And that's better, especially in a zone defense, where the more time you got, the more time that those veterans can kind of maneuver into those creases and those spots of that zones and just find those sweet spots. And the really good veteran quarterbacks and wide receivers can really find guys and start hitting them for some pretty good chunks, as we saw late down the season. But no, I think this line, when this thing's fully intact, and let's hope that Dio comes back, second half of the season, and then you've got, D-Buck, and you've got Grover, and then you've got Quiddy, and then you've got, hopefully, Kamoko is a part of that mix, Tyquan Lewis. I mean, man, you've got a pretty good, stable, and I know Ballard wants 8 people at all times, 8 or 9 guys that can just continuously rush that quarterback. I think you got it. The big question mark is A, you're going to have some young guys on the outside, so you're going to have to be patient with those guys. And B, who can step up on that other side? Is Toure he's going to turn the curve? Is it going to be Tyquan Lewis's year to finally say, hey, I can play in the NFL. I warrant a second big contract. I deserve to be here. But yeah, I think the defensive line actually helps the cornerbacks this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, until you said that, I was like, that was where I was going right away. Is when you watch enough football, the biggest thing is the D line is what helps the corners. The pressure on the quarterback, it makes the quarterback get the ball out quicker. It makes them have to move faster, and it makes them have to process faster. And that's where it puts less pressure on the corners. If your D line is not good, that's when you get the issues. That's when the corners struggle. That's when they're having to cover for 5 to 7 to 10 seconds. That's your issue. That's why you see like Mahomes and Rodgers and Luck back in the day, when they scramble, it throws it in disarray. You have to have really disciplined corners. I'm partial to Rock. I do want to point out, before I answer anything else about the corners, I love that you conveniently completely left out Ben Banogu in regards to the line, because we do all know how you feel about Ben Banogu.
He's dead. He's completely dead. Yeah, like he doesn't exist. That's fine.
It's not a Colt.
Yeah, you won't hear any Ben Banogu talk unless he makes the football team. That's all. That's it. That's all. I'm done.
For those who don't know, Zach's biggest hot take, I think, of this entire offseason is that Banogu is not a Colt when the season kicks off. So, I mean, I think the corners will be improved. I mean, like you said, Kenny's number one. Xavier will be just as – I don't know if he'll be as good as last year, but he'll be good this year again. I'm really interested to see Marvell Tell. I think that's the one that I think a lot of Colts fans are really interested to see how he does, see how he comes back from having a year off. from not playing last year. I mean, and no one can knock him for what he did for opting out. You know, it is what it is with it. But it's what kind of rust does he have? Did he improve? What did he do all last year? Like, I'm really interested to see, does he come in shape? You know, I'm not saying that he's sitting at home eating Dunkin' Donuts for the last year, but I'm interested to see what he looks like because he did look good 2 years ago. So, I mean, and I think with Rock, I think it's well known. I like Rock. I think he is, you know, we've talked about it numerous times. I think he is going to be given the opportunity to play himself out of a job. That's where I sit with him. I think he's going to have the opportunity, and if he doesn't take advantage of it, he will not be a Colt after this year. You know, that's kind of where it sits. And that number 26 jersey that I send you will be an antique and a novelty item. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see, but it's a great question. So last one, because I want to expand with this one because I think it's an interesting one. This is from Arnar Johansson. And if Arnar is one of our many fans, because I don't know if you know that I did tell Zach this, and we were going to touch on it later. We're actually kind of big in the Netherlands right now, which is kind of crazy. But he says basically he feels the Colts are in win now mode. So why take kind of a flyer on a second round pick with Dio? Why take a pick that's not going to play presumably for half the year?
Well, I think the first and foremost, if you were to ask Chris Ballard, he would say it's not a flyer. You know, I mean, and I understand it's a very good question and it's a very valid point. You know, in a vacuum, in that moment when that draft pick happened, I'll be the first to admit I didn't like that pick. What he's saying was my sentiment, was a lot of Colts fans' sentiment. I didn't like that pick in a year where you didn't have your typical amount of draft picks in the draft, to take a flyer on a second round pick and a guy who may or may not even play this year. But I believe they felt like he is such a dynamic athlete. In the one comp I keep hearing over and over and over again, it is JPP. I hear that so often around the league. He's just a freak athlete. He's got brute strength. He's so big. Kevin Bowen, I listened to his podcast, several weeks ago, and he said, man, that dude is a large. He said this kind of a hot take. He said he is bigger than DeForest Buckner on the field. Like,
holy
that's
smokes,
how big he is. Like, so for the Colts, they feel like they hit on him like they hit on Darius Leonard, and they feel like they got a first-round draft pick, a top 20 player in the second round. And I don't think that's smoke or that's just Colt speak. I think that's actually real. And I think they just, if you remember, how quickly they turned that card in on draft night. I don't know if any team in the draft of the whole draft turned the card in faster than that. Like that dude was locked and loaded. They were ready for him to be there. If he was there, they were going to draft him. So heavy conviction. Mm-hmm. And I believe it kind of playing the same model that they did with Blackman the year before. They feel like he's good in the process of healing, and they feel like that, he can actually come back sooner rather than later. I think they feel like they get a half year out of him this year. I really do.
Yeah, and everyone that we've talked to, so me and you talked on draft night, and it was like, man, that card went in fast. We all felt, I think all of Colts Nation felt that we were trading back, that we were going to trade. He wanted more picks, and that card went in so fast. And then you watch with the next pick, and you hear them talking, and rightfully, they're going to say this anyway, but they're talking, if healthy, they may have picked him in the first round. Now, I think I would be very interested if Kwity and him were available, because they were shocked that Kwity was there. But they love him. And everything we've heard, too, is exactly what you said about him in regards to Buckner. The guy is the largest human being people have seen in a while. Like, he is huge out on the field. And he seems to be doing well. When he got drafted, he moved his rehab from Vanderbilt, which is a premier hospital, in the Southeast, in the country, in the world for the most part. And he moved it all up to Indy, to where he is, he is focused. And I'll tell you, like, I'll tell the listeners, like, a little background. We talked to Dio's agent about coming on, and he was very interested in coming on. And then we kind of talked a little more, and he decided not to, but his response to me was, hey man, I'm very focused. Like, he is focused. Like, this is downtime right now, but he is extremely focused on football and on his rehab. And if he can't play, it's getting in the playbook. He was very focused, and that's a big thing. I love to hear that. Like, I love to hear that he was focused, that he wants to be prepared. I agree with you, man. I don't think that they view it as a flyer. I don't. I mean, me and you have kind of been steady with the fact that I think it's 8 games. I think he misses 8 to 9, but for those who are just tuning in too, who haven't listened to, Zach had a great example out there with this too, is that he could be medically cleared by week 3, but not play till week like 13. Because he's practicing, he's getting his legs under. He could be on the active roster. There's so many working parts to what that looks like when he's elevated to the active roster. And we still don't even know what's the publish going to look like. What's the IR going to look like? We don't know any of this still. Is it going to be like last year where you can put him in there for 6 weeks or a couple of weeks, pull him back out? We don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm with you, man. I don't think they think it's a flyer. I think they think it's a solid pick, and they are very excited to have him on the field. So I know I said we were going to do that last question, but Vinny snuck in, man. Vinny slid into my DMs with a question, and so I've got to answer it. We got to ask Vinny's question, man. We got to do it. We got to do it. So let me pull that up real quick. He totally slid in. I saw him respond, and I was like, he's going to send a question. So Vinny's is, with Carson Wentz reunion with Reich, do you see Wentz returning as a top 10, not MVP, but top 10 quarterback?
Yes, I think definitely will be a top 10. I've always felt like he could be somewhere between 7, 8, or 9. I think that's his sweet spot. Like, if he's there, the Colts are a serious Super Bowl contender at that point. I think if he's right there, hovers inside that top 10, I think he'll be there. My biggest concern with Wentz more than anything is not his physical ability, is his ability to just not be hurt. He's had some really unfortunate, unlucky injuries in the past. And I just hope he can just find a way to take care of his body and not have these, bad hits, these freak hits that could put him out for extended amounts of time. So other than that, man, I think he's definitely can be a top 10 quarterback. Vinny, I think that he will be a top 10 quarterback. And Frank Reich's, in my opinion, going to put him in a very good position. I think he'll be comeback player of the year this year. I really do. I think he'll get the comeback player of the year. And we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. We've said all the time, I don't think you need him to be MVP caliber from 2017, but I think you want to see him top 10. I think that's a very realistic option. I think that's really, I do think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to play really well. I think he's going to be comeback player of the year. I agree with you on that. I think he's going to be put in positions that he wasn't put in Philadelphia. And God love it, I've talked to Philly people, and there's a lot of people that when you talk to Philly podcasters, our little group that we know, they still love him, man. They're still rooting really hard for him. I mean, shout out. I mean, Giovanni is like his biggest fan. Like, he rocks the Wentz jersey all the time on social media. So I think he's gonna play really, really well. So we love the questions, you guys. And I tried something new tonight. Why not, man? I figured I'd put an ask out in the middle of the show and see who we got. And we got several. Vinny snuck in there. Vinny slid into the DMs. And for those who want to know more about Vinny, go back and check out his episode last week where he talked a little bit. I mean, it was just fun, man. Me and you were talking earlier today and said we're having a blast this off season with this, of having other content creators or fans or listeners giving you guys a platform to come on here. I mean, it's so much fun. Like, I love hearing, I mean, we ask the same questions a lot of times, like, how did you become a Colts fan? How do you watch them? Stuff like that. But it's fun, man. Like, we've always said, we do it for the listeners. Like, we don't talk at you, we talk with you. I mean, what better way to do that than to have people on? And we're going to kind of try to, I think me and you have talked, this is kind of going to be what we do during this period here of trying to have as many people on as we can.
Absolutely, man. I think it just means so much. And I've always mentioned in the past, Stephen, that, you know, this is a podcast for the people, you know, by the people, and because of the people. You know, we wouldn't be doing this, you know, if we didn't have such cool people, you know, interacting with us on a daily, weekly, you know, whatever basis. And how cool of a feeling is it for, you know, you and I, who started off doing this and we just loved it, you know, just talking Colts football, to introduce people to our world, you know, to what it's like to have people, you know, in the UK, you know, tonight, or Vinny, you know, in Canada, or just any of the fans, giving them an opportunity to not only just, you know, send out a few tweets, but to kind of give them an opportunity and a platform to have their voice heard. You know, that means so much to me personally, and I know it does you as well, Stephen, just for them to have the opportunity to kind of voice their opinion and for it to matter and be relevant in the Colts community. That's all we're about, man. That's all we always have been about, is just being a part of this Colts community. And we love you, man. I mean, it's just so cool to have this interaction that we're getting. And, you know, shout out to you guys. This week was just a huge week for us on YouTube. If you're not subscribing, we ask that you go subscribe. If you do subscribe, you know, maybe share it, you know, I mean, every once in a while, just let people know, you know, that we're out there. We've got some cool stuff cooking up, you know, in August. As the season gets going, we're going to try to constantly just turn that wheel and make this a better show as it goes along. But this off season, you know, there's not a lot to talk about. So it's so fun to have, you know, people on the show. And I think, you know, we're going to kind of stick with this theme until something kind of breaks. And, you know, if something crazy goes on, we'll obviously have an emergency podcast. But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to be a part of it, if you want to have your voice heard, if you want to have your questions asked, you know, I love the idea that you had tonight, Stephen, just to say, hey, we're live right now, ask away. You know what I mean? We're going to be a completely interactive show moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the coolest thing. I mean, you've talked about it. I've talked about it. You know, we talked about it with Vinny last week too, is like, when you start doing something like this, I think you hit it on the head when you said, you just want to know somebody's listening, that somebody is. So for the fact that, like, you know, a couple of days ago, Zach puts out the tweet, and just to reiterate, follow us at NoHorsing, at Stephen Burton 86, at Colts Nation 365. You see these tweets. Zach put out the tweet, and it was like, the first time we asked, hey, anybody want to jump on? We didn't really get a ton of responses. You know, we went through and we kind of found some people. That was when Ian and Mason came on, buddies of ours. But this time it was like inundated with different people, from listeners to other podcasters, to just across the board. And we were super pumped to get Harrison on here and have him, and God love him for being up. So I say late, so early. It's 2 a.m. when we're recording this for him. And he stayed on, and I don't know about you, man, but he was vibrant, he was interactive. He did not look tired. He did text me right afterwards. He said, good show, going to bed. So he was off. But like, I mean, we've talked, like, this is going to kind of be what we do, man. During the off season, we're going to give a voice to you guys. We don't look at ourselves any differently than any other Colts fans. We're part of the Colts Nation, Colts community, and we have a platform where we can bring people on and have you guys talk about what you're passionate about with the Colts. And it's fun. I mean, like Zach said, shout out to you guys, because on our YouTube and even on our downloads was massive last week with Vinny coming on. One of our biggest episodes we've ever had. And I love that too, because that's great for us. Like, I'm not going to lie, that's awesome for me and you, but it's awesome for Vinny. He's getting ready to drop his brand new podcast, and people are going to hear about it. Massive amounts of people get to hear about his podcast that's coming out in July 1st, Canada Day, Fantasy Football Revamped. There you go. We'll drop for Vinny. But I mean, it's just fun. It is, you know, and we're going to continue to do it. You know, what are we, about a month month and a half from training camp kind of opening. We got a little bit of news that it looks like training camp's going to be open to the public, so we'll see with what goes on with that. But, we're going to kind of keep doing what we do, plugging along and having you guys come on, look for the tweet. The tweet will come out probably later this week. Y'all respond. Let us know if you want to jump on, and we'll kind of go from there, man. I mean, it's just fun, man. It's such a blast to do this. It's such a blast that you guys listen. And like we said in the beginning, in the middle, we always say at the end, please rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is you do on whatever platform you do it on, please go do it. The reviews are always fun. I'm able to see those. And I did finally figure out that I have to hit a little button to see the ones that come from different countries. I did not know that. So I've dropped down and I've seen some. I'm hopefully going to see Vinny soon. He's tried again. So hit those ones. I got nothing else, man. We always end it the same way. I love you. Zach loves you. We're out.